And once again, we are back for the Organic Mechanic and Harley Smith's visit. We have a good time doing this, and we're very thankful for all the viewers that join in to watch us. And once again, like always, we're going to start off the topic where we go over Harley sports betting predictions. No, just kidding. No sports betting predictions. What we're going to do, we're going to talk about PGRs today, and synthetic PGRs, natural PGRs, organic biostimulants, organic plant stimulants, and things like that. And I know a lot what we talk about bleeds over into our other podcasts, but as the questions keep coming in, we'll keep talking about them. So we appreciate the viewers and the questions we get. And off camera again, we were talking about plant growth regulators, and there's a place for them, and a timing to use them. And again, there's synthetic and there's organic ones. I'm more inclined to use the organic ones, the more natural ones. Never been a fan of the synthetics, and Hardy's going to address that for us in this episode as well. And what's tricky about using the synthetic ones, a lot of products out there, the manufacturer tries to sneak some of the synthetic PGRs into a product, and you really don't know you're using it. So, excuse me, hopefully we can steer some people in the right direction here. So anyway, I got 3 letters. PGR. Go, Harley.
Plant growth regulators, PGRs. I guess I'll start with a little bit of a story. I was one time as a consultant. I was hired by a fertilizer company out west to kind of reverse engineer some of their own products that they had, because they were doing some things with plant growth regulators, and they wanted me to help them see better what they were using so they could get better control of the manufacturing stream, so to say,
Sure.
the inputs. They just wanted them. They didn't want to have to rely on just one company or one formulator anymore. They wanted to be able to have better control over the process. So I helped them with a few different things, nutrients and stuff. But then they wanted to do this one product that had a plant growth regulator type effects. So I did a bunch of research for them. Went online, I was looking at all kinds of different plant growth regulators on the market, and in the very end, on the artificial ones or the synthetic ones, and in the end, I wrote a report and said, I can't recommend any of the plant growth regulators that I've researched online. I can't recommend any of those because they all have at least the potential for negative side effects. And the more research I did, the more that reconfirmed it. I wanted to come up with some answers for them. Here they were asking me to help them formulate a product. I said, can't do that. I'd just suggest we go back to some of the natural ones, and then try to help them work more effectively. Because it turned out, from what I saw, almost every artificial or synthetic plant growth regulator interfered with metabolic pathways in the plants. So that process of interfering, they're actually interfering with nature. And because of that, we're all part of nature, and we can have some negative side effects from those trace elements too, or those trace chemicals. If you interfere with nature, in my opinion, this is general, then sooner or later there's going to be negative side effects, either to the plants or to the environment or even to people. But if you work with nature, there are often beneficial side effects that we never even anticipated. Not only did
and that carry over, and that carry over, not just right that moment.
That's right. Because one thing affects, that's nature. It's a whole cascade of chemical reactions that are happening at the right time and activating. So what I would rather do is stimulate the plants natural production of enzymes and whatever else, and natural plant growth regulators inside the plant itself, and then activate the enzymes that they produce. If you do that, you're going to have a lot of you're going to get the effects you're looking for, but more positives than negatives.
Oh, this is gold, Harley. I mean, this is gold. To hear you say that right from Harley Smith's mouth, the synthetic chemical plant growth regulators, bad side effects. And this is coming from your research, messes up the metabolic function of the plants. And Harley Smith chooses not to work with them and not to use them. That's saying a lot, guys. That's saying a lot. Okay, so I hate to jump in there at the time, but boy, we've never touched on it like this. So now what you were saying, let's go with some of the more natural ones that you like to use.
Yeah, well, for one thing, let me say one thing too. I'm not against something that's synthetically made. I mean,
Oh,
if
yeah.
it's, but I mean, but if it's a plant growth regulator that
Yeah.
interferes like with the gibberellic acid pathway or something, I know
Yeah.
it's going to have a downstream effect somewhere. But there's
Yeah.
some things like the natural plant growth hormone, like IAA, indolacetic acid for root growth, that's found in
Mm-hmm.
kelp. Or IBA, which is used by made by the plant too, and it's also changed into IAA by microbes. Something that if it's made synthetically doesn't mean it's bad, but when
Oh,
it's
no.
designed specifically to interfere instead of enhance, I think that's where it turns bad. It's how it's used and what it's used for, what effects it's having. But the natural
Yeah.
one, let's just answer your question. Well, we know number one, Kelp4less. Kelp. Kelp is loaded with natural hormones that plant growth promoting hormones and trace elements that turn on enzymes. So, and also some of the amino acids and things in kelp that the plant and microbes convert into plant growth regulators, like root stimulants and bloom stimulants and
That's
growth
right.
stimulants. So, um, so again, no, the number one on the list would be kelp, and as a plant growth regulator, you use it at the roots, you're going to get more root growth, right? You use it as a foliar, you're going to get break some of the apical dominance, the top growth, stimulate lateral bud development, get a little bit bushier, and also helps to pull nutrients into the tissue, keep them juvenile. So those are all, in my opinion, those are all plant growth regulator type effects, but they're happening in a natural way, kind of working with nature, kind of working with the microbes, working with the plant, and just giving it the things it needs to be able to um, give it just a little push in the right direction, the plant, instead of trying to just stop the traffic in one direction.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it too. And yeah, I was referring to the synthetic PGRs. Not everything synthetic too. Just to clear
Yeah.
that up. Yeah, the synthetic plant plant growth um, hormones and things like that. That's what I was referring to. So just make sure
Exactly.
that's clear. And you're absolutely right. And you know what? And a lot of us have been using kelp for a long time. Have been using a lot of the other organic acids for a long time without really understanding exactly what they do. All we know is they're helping us. They're good additions to a program that we're using. And again, like I always say, it's not a silver bullet. There's no silver bullets. It's
No.
just a good addition to a nutrient program. It's a good addition to a soil program just because of the added benefits. And and, and when you apply the more natural organic biostimulants, the effects on the plant may be a little bit slower and a little bit more minute when comparing them to the synthetic ones. But you know what? It, like Hardy said, it's a more natural development of everything. In the long run, you'll always be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, the hormones in kelp, they have auxins, They have IAA in there that help initiate, tell the plant make more roots. They're very high in cytokinins. You know, in biology, cytokinesis is cell division. Cytokinins are the natural hormone in, in all cells that stimulate cell division. So you use it at the roots, it stimulates more cell division of root cells. So you get more lateral root growth from the auxin. It just kind of sparks it, and then more root mass. Use it at the leaves, so you can get the stimulates the cell division of the meristems. Breaks the apical, and you know the auxin to cytokinin ratio is what affects the bushiness of the plants or the top growth of the plants. So because of the high cytokinins, it tends to restrict the top growth, but stimulate the the uh, the bud growth, the lateral buds. And if you're growing mother plants that you're going to take cuttings from, I recommend take 2 weeks before you take your cuttings, do a light mist with kelp extract. Maybe a little yucca as a wetting agent, and then it'll pull the nutrients into the tissue. It'll help the lateral branches, which is your cutting development. You'll the trace elements will go up because of the beneficial trace elements from the sea in the kelp, and you'll get faster rooting and better, stronger roots when you do it. So those are all plant growth regulator effects, but it's not. It's accelerating or balancing pathways and not interfering.
There we go. There we go. What has your experience been with tricantanol in some of your research or some of your formulations?
Yeah. Um, I haven't done a lot of research on that. I've done some. Kind of, I'd have to look at my notes right now. It is a natural growth regulator, um, but I can't remember off the top of my head because I haven't used it in any of my products that I've developed for anybody or my own. So I don't want to comment on it too much at this point. I remember we were going to bring that up as a topic one time, and I looked into it a little bit more, just a little bit more research to understand a little more about how it worked. And but that was a while ago, so I can't remember right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I remember us talking about that, and I'm not a big fan of the synthetic tricantanol either. And it's another one of those things that some people like to sneak that into products for you to use. And I just want to let everybody know that we did a really good video on our YouTube channel, our Kelp4less YouTube video, on how to do a natural tricantanol extraction from alfalfa. And it's a pretty easy process. And yes, it's very low levels of tricantanol, but a lot of growers are very successful using that formula of using alfalfa meal and some organic acids and then getting it through a digestion and a brewing process to make a really nice alfalfa tea that has tricantanol properties in it. And I know a lot of people that do that religiously. So if that's something that any of our viewers would be interested in, just check out our organic tricantanol method on the YouTube channel as well. I just wanted to throw that in while we were there. So, okay, Harley, this
You
is
don't
all
have
really good advice.
you don't have a triacantanol product, do you?
No, absolutely not. No, we do not have a tricantanol product. That's kind of we used to get calls for it all the time, and it's just not something. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, the synthetic version, but you can get small amounts out of it, extracting it from alfalfa. So we kind of did a instructional video on that. Interesting topic.
Yeah. Yeah, but you brought up a good point too about growers have been using kelp for a long time. In fact, farmers have used kelp in the field for over 1,000 years in agriculture, and they
Yeah.
even though that long ago they saw positive effects. They knew it worked. They didn't really know why. They didn't know what it did, and then more recently, it we learned more about how it worked and why, and some of those natural hormones natural plant growth regulators, it had more than just a fertilizer effect, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't just the fertilizer and the potassium in the kelp. No, it went beyond the fertilizer value. And then finally, we discovered more about the, say, like the auxins and the cytokinins. But I remember one time I actually, on a website, I did some research and I wrote about why it worked. And they included it on their website. That was from a distributor of a lot of products, the kelp. And it was had to be taken off the market. They threatened to take it off the market because they said,
Oh.
oh, that's a plant growth regulator. As soon as I said auxins, right? That's a plant growth regulator. You go high levels of auxins, you're going to kill weeds. It's going to kill plants. You know, I'm sorry, but because and they called it labeling because I put the scientific understanding along with the product. So we had to take that all down. But in education, we can talk about it because it's true. It's real. It's
Yeah.
proven by science. But sometimes the regulators see just one keyword like auxin and they think of it as being something that it's not, like a pesticide, but it's not, or an herbicide. So in the end, they did allow those kelp products to go back on the market only because through lawyers and a lot of work, they were able to say no, plants make auxins. Yeah, they naturally produce auxins. So these are natural auxins from plants. And they finally said, oh, okay, you can put it back on the grudgingly. So
I won't
sometimes
even
when
ask you. I won't even ask you what state that was, but so
you
keep
know,
going. I have a pretty good
you
idea.
know, you know, it starts with a C. And it's not Connecticut. No, it's not bad though. I mean, they turned it around, but it's it's kind of tough there. Oh, never mind. Just got a text. Um, both of us know about regulations and I'm trying to deal with them. And sometimes it's better, less is more. It's better not to explain
Yeah.
how it works, just to suggest that it may work. And I'd
Hmm.
rather do that anyway. I tend to be conservative. I don't make wild, crazy, extravagant claims. I'll give them the science. You try it. And then when it works, when they come back to me and say, oh, that biostimulant that we added to the fertilizer, my plants have never been so healthy. I go, okay, that's nice to good to hear. I'm not surprised, but it's good to hear. Better than saying, oh, you're going to get 20% increase in yield if you use this one. Oh, and you'll get another 10% if you use that one, and 20% if you do that. Well, so if I use these 5 products, I'm going to double my yields? No, you're not. You know, so I'd rather be err on the side of being a little cautious and conservative, and allow nature to express itself and allow come back in higher than what they expected, and they're pleasantly pleased.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, we've been kind of we've been doing presentations. I have some more presentations too. So we're kind of hopping around different trade shows, things like that. So last couple of weeks, I got to experience a lot of other, I'm going to go biological products out there that are being promoted right now. And um, it's very interesting that there's a lot of new products, new formulations that are coming out as biologicals. They show the organic acids on it, and then they may show a couple bacillus strains, or maybe some trichoderma strains, or things like that.
Mhm.
And when we get down to the brass tacks, and I'm talking with the representatives and reading the label, here's what's frustrating: is it's apply 1.6 ounces up to 3 ounces per acre. And as soon as I read that on something that's supposed to be, a natural biostimulant, that's what tips me off that there's got to be some synthetics in there, because
Uh,
I've been doing this a long time, and 1 to 3 ounces of any liquid product out there spread out across an acre. I mean, an acre is huge, 43,560 square foot. and you're going to put 1.6 ounce, if you're going to do 1.6 ounces of concentrate into enough water to cover the whole field that way, that's very fishy to me. So I just want to throw out there, buyer beware. These low amount per acre rates in agriculture that are still claiming to be natural and biostimulants, and they show all the good things on the label, humic, fulvic, and kelp, and all those things. Be careful, because I believe that there's some synthetic PGRs that are going into those products to get the results that they're advertising. And the results are, 25% increase in yield. Just unbelievable, that small amount of biostimulant per acre. Now, if it's a real biostimulant, I wouldn't mind putting that in per gallon using kelp. 1.6 ounces of kelp per gallon in a root drench or a reservoir feed like that. Now we're talking, now we're getting somewhere. I can see that. But that amount over an acre of fields, just be cautious. I just had to throw that in. It's been kind of my pet peeve the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm thinking about the smaller amounts compared to bigger amounts too. Even naturally, there's a difference, as you are very well aware, between a seaweed extract and kelp meal.
Oh yeah.
It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Right.
The extracts are higher concentration of the natural plant growth regulators than the kelp meal itself. Is
Absolutely.
diluted down. Now, there's a place for the kelp meal. I recommend it. You could add it to your soil. I would say add it to your compost. It's going to have a beneficial effect on the microbes. But it's the extracts themselves you use in smaller amounts. They're more concentrated, and I think they're more they're more effective than the kelp meal alone.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Yeah, kelp meal is slow release, and we ship a lot of it out to a lot of our customers, and we recommend they blend it in with their soil. Matter of fact,
Right.
it's just a really good addition to any soil. When it comes to needing results, yes, we always point them to the soluble seaweed, the soluble kelp, the extracts for number one, ease of use, and you can schedule when you want to use that during your gardening time, where the kelp meal mixed into the soil, and it has benefits, but very low, what am I going to say this? Very low levels of those stimulants compared to the soluble extracts.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, and if you're going to do a foliar spray, you want something that is very soluble, that it also has the right levels. You can measure it.
Uh-huh.
You know that you're not gonna be too much or too little to have the effect you're looking for. And it doesn't take a lot. When you're looking at the cellular microscopic level, some things like some enzymes, they're either on or they're off. You really can't turn them more on. Or some of the transcription factors that activate genes, they're either on or they're off. You can't turn them more on. The idea is to turn them on and leave them on so they continue to have that effect. Like at the roots,
Right.
you want to see active root growth from the beginning all the way to the day of harvest. You don't want the roots dying back at any time. You want the calcium to be taken up and the iron to be taken up all the way to the end of the grow. So that having that nice slow release is great, but also being able to make sure you're stimulating it all the way along. That's why I kind of like what you're doing with the living water, because you're adding biostimulants, you're adding microbes, but you're keeping them active on the roots, and you're adding them, re-inoculating the roots as they grow and as the conditions change. So that's a little different too than just throwing some stuff up, use it once. Although I'd say using it once just to get root growth going is better than not at all, and
Right.
so forth.
Right. Yeah. And both, if you're growing in soil, mix some kelp meal in the soil. It's a good organic matter base. It's good microbial food over time. It has a lot of benefits to the soil. And then, of course, use the the soluble, the concentrated soluble powder in the top and in the reservoir. It's a good program. We often get a lot of customers that get confused that this, for an example, don't quote me, this isn't 100% sure, but they hear that kelp is good. So they look at kelp meal and it's $100 for 50 pounds or whatever. And then we ship that to them and they say, well, this stuff isn't even soluble. So we don't advertise kelp meal as being soluble. And sometimes they look at our soluble kelp and see 50 pounds and say, I don't want to pay $500. I'll get the kelp meal. It's a lot cheaper. So there's a lot of difference in between those two. So I hope this made sense. And Harley, you explained it very well. And probably with that, we're going to be running short on time here. We're going to have to tie it up and probably say goodbye until the next one.
I think let me just put in one last thing. A little
right. Come on.
encore here real quick.
Yeah.
Synthetic amino acids compared to natural amino acids has to do with how it's I'll call it the extraction. If you use enzymatic hydrolysis, that's the natural way from microbes, it breaks down proteins into amino acids. And amino acids have chirality, left-handed and right-handed versions. The L amino acids, the left-handed from nature, is biologically active form. You could also make amino acids through acid hydrolysis or alkaline hydrolysis, break down proteins into amino acids, but then they're right-handed. They lose that left-handed and they're not biologically active. So I would say there's one thing that's a little bit harder to see, but if it says L amino acids, you know that it's the natural form. So, and it will be
Good
much
point.
more effective. There's only one amino acid that I said you can go either way, and that's glycine, because glycine only has one hydrogen ion as a side chain, and you can make it either way. It's the same molecule. So that one, there's no chirality on that. It doesn't have a left or a right-handed. But all the other amino acids, yeah, you want the L amino acids. I guess so.
That's top-notch science right there, Harley. Top-notch science. Thanks for sharing. Very valuable.
Okay. Okay, I guess we can wrap it up then. Good discussion today. And I'll keep going back looking at triacantanol some more, so next time you ask me, you won't stump me.
Well, that's good. If Harley's not using it, you know it's not needed, so we should just end it there.
I wouldn't say that, but
no. Look,
okay.
You can achieve
Well,
achieve things more with a more natural way.
always better to work with nature. Okay, I'll catch you next time.
All right,
Good
thanks
one.
again. See ya.